Have you ever felt the cold grip of death before it even comes? The moment when the air around you chills and you just know something isn't right. This is how it all began. A quiet night on the open sea, stars shimmering above, the waters calm, but no one aboard, the raven's cry, knew that this would be the last peaceful night they'd ever experience. My name is Jack Coleman, and I was part of that ill-fated crew. I've never spoken about what happened that night, but now I think it's time you know the truth. The story of Captain Sybil Blackwater, the infamous pirate queen, and the curse that haunts anyone who dares to speak her name. She wasn't just any pirate. She was a terror of the seas, commanding her fleet with unmatched cruelty. But what set her apart from all others wasn't her hunger for gold or her thirst for blood. No. Sybil made a pact with the sea witches, ancient beings, forgotten by time, who ruled the darkest parts of the ocean. And it's that curse that cursed our souls forever. Do you believe in curses? If you don't, you soon will. It was a stormy night when we first heard of the treasure. Rumor had it, a chest filled with gold, silver, and jewels, all guarded by the spirit of the pirate queen herself, lay buried deep beneath the waves, hidden within the jagged rocks of Dead Man's Reef. Every pirate who tried to claim it never returned. Their ships were found abandoned, torn apart by forces no one could explain. Some said the sea itself swallowed them whole. But those were just stories, right? Or so we thought. We were a crew of 12 aboard the Raven's Cry, led by Captain Richard Fenton. He wasn't a man who feared legends. No, he sought them out. And the treasure of Sybil Blackwater, that was his ultimate prize. He believed the curse was nothing more than a sailor's tale, something to scare away fools. But when greed blinds a man, he stops seeing the world for what it truly is. The first sign that something was wrong came the night before we reached Dead Man's Reef. The wind died, the sea turned eerily still, and a thick fog rolled in out of nowhere, swallowing the horizon. We were surrounded by nothing but silence. Then came the whispers. Jack, Jack, can you hear me? We're waiting. I'll never forget the sound of it, like 100 voices speaking at once, faint but clear. At first, I thought it was just the wind playing tricks on me, but when I looked around, I saw the fear in the eyes of the other men. They heard it too. Captain Fenton laughed it off, but I could see the unease in his eyes. He wasn't as fearless as he let on. But pride is a dangerous thing. It pushes men to do foolish things. And that's exactly what Fenton did. He ordered us to keep sailing straight into the fog, straight into the heart of the curse. That's when we saw it. A ghostly ship appeared through the mist, its sails tattered, the wood rotting and covered in barnacles, as if it had been at the bottom of the ocean for centuries. It was drifting toward us, silently, without a crew. We all stood frozen, unable to move, as it came closer and closer. Suddenly, a scream pierced the air. One of the men, Thomas, dropped to his knees, clutching his head as if something was inside it, tearing his mind apart. He started mumbling, talking about her. Sybil Blackwater. How she was coming for us. How the sea witches would drag us all down to the depths. Then, just as quickly as it started, it stopped. Thomas collapsed, lifeless, and that was just the beginning. One by one, the crew began to change. They'd start hearing the whispers, seeing shadows in the corners of their eyes that disappeared the moment they turned. It felt like the ship itself was alive, watching us, playing with us. Captain Fenton, though, refused to turn back. He was obsessed. The treasure was all that mattered to him now. Even as men started disappearing in the night, first George, then Michael, he pushed forward. He convinced himself it was all in our heads. "It's the fear that's killing you," Not some old ghost, he'd yell. But deep down, we knew better. The night we reached Dead Man's Reef was the last night I slept as a sane man. The fog thickened, and the sea beneath us grew black as ink. The temperature dropped so low you could see your breath in front of you. And then we heard it. The unmistakable sound of a woman's laughter echoing through the ship. Captain Fenton stood at the bow, staring into the darkness, and whispered, "We're close." But the look in his eyes, it wasn't determination anymore. It was fear. Even he couldn't deny it any longer. Something was out there. Something was waiting for us. And then the storm hit. Waves taller than our masts crashed down on us, tossing the ship like a toy in a child's hands. Lightning split the sky, illuminating the ghostly ship beside us. Still there, still watching. But this time, it wasn't empty. Figures, shadowy, skeletal figures, stood on the deck, staring at us with hollow eyes. And at the helm, I saw her, Captain Sybil Blackwater, her long black hair whipping in the wind, her eyes glowing with a sickly green light. "Turn back!" I screamed. But it was too late. The ship was pulled toward the reef, as if an invisible hand was dragging us. The rocks tore into the hull, and we started sinking fast. Panic set in. Men were thrown overboard, swallowed by the black water. The sea witches had come for their prize. I'll never forget the moment Captain Fenton fell. One of the shadowy figures reached out, touched him, and he froze. His eyes turned black, his skin pale, and he let out a blood-curdling scream before he collapsed, dead on the deck. And then, nothing. The ship went down, and I was the only one left alive. Or so I thought. But you see, the curse doesn't let you go that easily. I escaped the wreckage, drifted for days until a passing merchant ship picked me up. But ever since that night, I've been haunted by the sea witches' whispers. They never left me. I see her in my dreams, Sybil Blackwater, every night, watching, waiting. And I know she's coming for me, just like she's coming for you now that you've heard her story. Now let me ask you, do you believe in curses? Because if you don't, you might want to rethink that. What would you do if you were in my shoes? And most importantly, do you think you would have survived? Tell me in the comments below. Also, let me know, where are you watching from? Let's see who's brave enough to admit they've heard Sybil's name now. And don't forget to hit the like button if you're enjoying the story. Because trust me, it only gets worse from here. But trust me when I say, the story doesn't end there. After I was rescued, I thought I was free. I thought I had escaped the curse. But it wasn't long before I realized that the sea witches had their claws deep in me. At night I would wake up to the sound of the ocean, even though I was miles away from the sea. The whispers followed me, faint at first, but growing louder each night. Jack, Jack, we're still waiting. I tried to ignore them. They were eager, just like we had been. Eager to claim the gold, the jewels, the fortune that lay beneath the waves. But I knew what was really waiting for us. As we neared Dead Man's Reef, the fog rolled in again, thick and suffocating. The sea turned black, just like before. And then the whispers began. Jack, Jack, it's time. I could feel the cold hand of the sea witches closing around me. I could see their ghostly ship in the distance, and there, at the helm, was Sybil Blackwater, waiting for me. But this time, I wasn't afraid, because I had a plan. Now here's a question for you, my friend. What would you do in my place? Would you sacrifice another soul to save your own? Or would you face the curse head on, knowing it would drag you into the depths of the ocean forever? Let me know what you think in the comments below. And don't forget to hit the like button if you're hooked on the story so far. Trust me, it only gets darker from here. As the ship crept closer to Dead Man's Reef, I could feel the tension growing thicker with every passing moment. The crew was on edge, sensing that something wasn't right. But they had no idea what kind of hell awaited them. They trusted me, just like my old crew had trusted me. And that's what made this so much harder. But the Sea Witches didn't care about my guilt, my hesitation. They only cared about one thing: the sacrifice. The fog wrapped around us like a noose, and the wind died, leaving us drifting in eerie silence. The only sound was the gentle lap of the waves against the hull. The crew exchanged nervous glances, whispering among themselves. That's when I heard it again. "Jack, Jack, we're here." Sybil Blackwater's voice slithered into my mind, sending chills down my spine. I knew what I had to do. I had to lead the crew into the heart of the reef. But my legs felt like they were made of stone. How could I willingly send them to their deaths? One of the crewmen, a young lad named Peter, approached me. His face was pale, his eyes wide with fear. "Captain, what's going on? This doesn't feel right." He was right. Nothing about this felt right. But there was no turning back now. I forced a smile. "Don't worry, lad. We're close. Just keep the course steady." My voice cracked, betraying the calm I was trying to project. We sailed deeper into the fog, the jagged rocks of Dead Man's Reef looming ahead like the teeth of a monstrous beast. The crew worked tirelessly to navigate through the treacherous waters, unaware that they were heading straight into a trap. And then the whispers started again. But this time, it wasn't just in my head. The entire crew heard it. Their heads snapped around, searching for the source of the eerie voices. They gripped their weapons tightly, their faces etched with terror. The whispers echoed across the deck, soft and seductive, like the call of a siren. "Come closer. Come to us." One by one, the crew began to fall under the spell. Their eyes glazed over, and they moved as if in a trance, drawn toward the edge of the ship. I tried to stop them, to snap them out of it, but it was no use. The Sea Witches had them now. The first man, a grizzled old sailor named Thomas, reached the edge and threw himself into the water without a second thought. He didn't scream. He didn't fight. He just sank beneath the waves, his body disappearing into the dark depths. The others followed, one after the other, until only Peter and I remained. Peter was shaking, tears streaming down his face. "Captain, please, we need to leave. We have to get out of here." I wanted to. God, I wanted to. But there was no escape, not for me, not for him. "It's too late," I whispered, my voice barely audible. "They've already claimed us." Peter looked at me, confusion and betrayal flashing in his eyes. "What are you talking about?" Before I could answer, the sea began to churn. The water around the ship bubbled and frothed, and from the depths, the ghostly ship of Sybil Blackwater rose once more. There she stood, at the helm, her long black hair billowing in the wind, her green eyes glowing with an otherworldly light. Her crew of the damned surrounded her, their skeletal hands gripping the tattered sails. "Welcome back, Jack," she called out, her voice dripping with malice. "You've brought us another soul, just as we agreed." Peter's eyes widened in horror as he realized what was happening. He turned to me, betrayal and fear etched on his face. You knew this was going to happen?" I couldn't look him in the eyes. "I'm sorry, Peter. I didn't have a choice." Sybil's laughter echoed across the water, a chilling sound that froze my blood. "You always have a choice, Jack. But now, it's time to pay the price." The ghostly crew reached out, their skeletal hands grabbing at Peter, pulling him toward the edge of the ship. He struggled, screamed, begged for his life. But it was no use. As they dragged him toward the water, he locked eyes with me one last time. "Please, Captain, don't let them take me." But I was frozen, helpless, just like before. With a final desperate scream, Peter was pulled beneath the waves. The water stilled, and the ghostly ship began to sink back into the depths, taking its victims with it. I was alone, again. But this time something was different. The whispers had stopped. For the first time in years, the curse was silent. I collapsed to my knees, staring out at the still water, my mind reeling. The sea witches had taken their sacrifice. They had claimed another soul. But I wasn't free. Not yet. Because as I sat there, staring into the abyss, I heard her voice one last time. "This isn't over, Jack. Not yet." The silence after Peter's disappearance was deafening, the kind that crawls under your skin and makes you question your own sanity. I was alone on that cursed ship, drifting aimlessly in the fog, with the weight of my past choices pressing down on me. My mind raced with 1,000 thoughts, each one darker than the last. Could this really be the end of it? Or was it just the beginning? Hours passed, maybe days. Time didn't seem to matter anymore. I hadn't eaten, hadn't slept. I just stared into the horizon, waiting for something, anything, to happen. That's when I noticed the fog beginning to lift. The sea around me grew clearer, revealing an island in the distance. It wasn't on any map I'd ever seen. The jagged cliffs and black sand beaches gave it an ominous air, as if the very land itself was cursed. And yet something about it that called to me. Maybe it was the whispers that had once haunted me. Maybe it was the promise of answers, or maybe it was Sybil. I didn't know, but I had to go there. I had to see it for myself. I steered the ship toward the island, every muscle in my body screaming in protest. As I neared the shore, I noticed something strange. The waters around the island were unnaturally calm, too calm, and the wind had completely died. It was as if the island itself controlled the sea, luring in those foolish enough to approach. With a heavy heart, I anchored the ship just off the coast and lowered the small rowboat into the water. Every stroke of the oars felt like a battle against an unseen force, but eventually I reached the shore. The black sand crunched beneath my boots as I stepped onto the beach. The air was thick and oppressive, like the island itself was alive and breathing. The cliffs loomed overhead, casting long shadows that seemed to move and shift as if watching my every move. I felt a shiver run down my spine. As I made my way inland, I couldn't shake the feeling that I was being watched. The path before me twisted and turned, leading me deeper into the heart of the island. Strange symbols were carved into the rocks, symbols I recognized from the sea witch's lair. They were warnings, curses, but I pressed on. Finally, I reached the center of the island, where a massive stone altar stood. It was ancient, worn by centuries of weather and time. And there, standing before it, was Sybil. She looked just as she had the day I first met her, beautiful, dangerous, and filled with a power that was beyond comprehension. Her green eyes glowed in the dim light, and a wicked smile spread across her lips. "You've come," she said, her voice as smooth as silk. "I knew you would." I clenched my fists, anger boiling inside me. "What do you want from me, Sybil? You've taken everything, my crew, my soul. What more could you possibly need?" She laughed, a cold, chilling sound that echoed across the island. "Oh, Jack, you still don't understand, do you? This was never about taking. It's about giving." I took a step back, confusion washing over me. "What are you talking about?" Sybil's smile widened as she stepped closer, her presence overwhelming. You were chosen, Jack. Chosen to be a part of something far greater than yourself. The Sea Witches, the curse. It was all a test, and you've passed. My heart raced as I tried to make sense of her words. Passed? What test? She gestured to the altar, where strange glowing symbols began to appear. The test of loyalty. The test of sacrifice. You've proven yourself time and time again. And now, it's time for you to take your place among the immortals. I felt a cold sweat break out across my skin. Immortals? What are you talking about? Sybil's eyes sparkled with a sinister light. The Sea Witches are not bound by time or death, Jack. We exist beyond the mortal realm. And now... So I took another step back, my mind racing. This was madness. I never wanted this, I shouted, my voice shaking. I just wanted to be free of the curse. Sybil's smile faded, replaced by a look of cold disdain. You can't escape your fate, Jack. It was sealed the moment you set sail all those years ago. The only question now is, will you embrace it, or will you fight it? I stared at her, my heart pounding in my chest. Could I really join them? Become one of the Sea Witches? The thought was both terrifying and tempting. Immortality, power beyond imagination. But at what cost? Suddenly the whispers returned, louder than ever before. They filled my mind, drowning out my thoughts, urging me to make a choice, to surrender, to give in. Join us, Jack. Join us. I shook my head, trying to clear my mind, but the voices only grew louder. My vision blurred and I stumbled forward, my knees buckling beneath me. I could feel the power of the island, the weight of the curse pressing down on me, and then everything went black. When I opened my eyes, I was no longer on the island. I was standing on the deck of the ship, the fog thick around me once more. The sea was calm, the air still. But something was different. I could feel it in my bones. I wasn't alone. I turned, and there, standing beside me, was Sybil. But she wasn't the same. Her form was more ethereal, her features softer, almost human. She smiled at me, a genuine smile, not the cold, calculating one I had grown used to. You made the right choice, Jack, she said softly. Welcome to eternity. I stared at her, my mind reeling. Had I truly made the choice? Had I really embraced the curse? Or had the curse embraced me? Now it's your turn to decide. Do you think Jack made the right choice? Or was it all part of Sybil's plan from the beginning? Let me know in the comments below. And if you're ready for the next part of Jack's story, hit that like button. There's still so much more to uncover. I stood there, on the deck of the cursed ship, staring into Sybil's glowing green eyes. Her words echoed in my mind. Welcome to eternity. Eternity. A concept that once seemed distant and abstract was now my reality. The fog that had once surrounded us began to dissipate, revealing a night sky full of stars, twinkling like distant promises of freedom. But I knew better. There was no escape now, no turning back. I had crossed the threshold, stepped into the abyss, and become part of something far greater and far darker than I ever imagined. Sybil's ethereal form shimmered in the moonlight, her presence more ghostly than ever before. She wasn't like the woman I first met. She was something else entirely. The Sea Witches had claimed her, molded her into their own, and now they had me too. What happens now? I asked, my voice low, the weight of my decisions sinking in. Sybil smiled, that same chilling, knowing smile that haunted my dreams. Now you learn. You see, the Sea Witches are bound to the waters, and with your acceptance, so are you. You'll sail these seas for eternity, claiming those who cross paths with the curse. The thought sent a shiver down my spine. Claiming them? You mean killing them? Her smile widened. Not killing, Jack. Reaping, collecting. The seas are hungry, always demanding more souls. But you don't have to worry. Those we take are lost, unworthy. Like your crew, they were chosen for a reason. I felt a pang of guilt twist in my stomach. The faces of my crew flashed in my mind. Peter, James, all the men I had led into this nightmare. They had trusted me, and I had doomed them to this fate. And what about me? I asked, desperation creeping into my voice. Am I doomed to this too? Sybil's gaze softened, her expression almost tender. You chose this path, Jack. But it's not a punishment. It's a reward. You'll live forever, sailing the seas, wielding powers beyond your imagination. You'll never grow old, never die. The ocean will be yours. Her words were meant to comfort me, but they only filled me with dread. Immortality wasn't a gift. It was a curse, to sail these haunted waters for eternity, with no escape, no end. What kind of life was that? I glanced around the ship, the same ship that had been my home for so many years. The wood creaked under my weight, and the sails fluttered in the soft breeze. The stars above seemed to watch, indifferent to the fate that had befallen me. But then something caught my eye. Far in the distance, through the thinning fog, I saw something. It was faint, but it was there. A small, flickering light. It wasn't from the moon or the stars. It was something else. Something human. A ship. I turned to Sybil, my heart racing. What's that? She followed my gaze, her expression unreadable. Another soul, perhaps. Sybil tilted her head, her eyes gleaming with curiosity. What are you thinking, Jack? I didn't answer. My mind was racing. Could it be? Was there a way out of this? A way to break the curse? The thought seemed impossible, but I had to try. I had to believe there was still hope, some way to undo what I had done. Without another word, I turned and ran to the helm, gripping the wheel with both hands. The ship groaned as I steered it towards the distant light, the sails catching the wind as we picked up speed. "Jack!" Sybil called out, her voice sharp with warning. "What are you doing? You can't outrun the curse." But I didn't stop. I couldn't stop. I had to try. I had to believe that there was still a way out, a way to free myself from this nightmare. The ship surged forward, cutting through the dark waters like a knife. The light grew closer, brighter, until I could make out the shape of the ship. A large, imposing vessel with tattered sails and a ghostly glow. It was unlike any ship I had ever seen. But then, as we drew near, I realized something was wrong. The ship wasn't just glowing, it was decaying. The wood was rotting, the sails were torn, and the crew